Chosen one, there is something that has been said about you in a place you could not hear. It was said long before this moment, before the heartache, before the nights when you prayed and the ceiling seemed to hold all your words inside it, returning nothing. Before the season when you sat alone with the honest truth of how close you had come to releasing your grip on the belief that your life was going somewhere that mattered. Something was said about you in that silence, and it was not small. And today, I am going to tell you what it was. There is a word the Hebrew writers used to describe the way God turns His face toward someone. Not toward the crowd. Not toward the people with clean records and well-organized lives and a faith that never trembles. Toward the one who is quietly still trying. The one who keeps returning even when everything inside them is tired from the returning. That word carries something in it that English does not have a direct translation for. It is a word of fierce, unhurried, completely personal attention. And chosen one, that attention has been on your life, not your performance. Your life. You have no idea how deeply God loves you. And I do not mean that the way it reads on a sympathy card, or in a quick text message someone sends when they know you are struggling. I mean the specific, exact, relentless, never fatigued love that has been tracking your particular name, your particular history, the particular shape of everything you have been quietly carrying through seasons that most people never saw. The love that has not once checked the hour and decided it was too late for you. That love is what this message is about, not a concept of it, not a list of scripture references to support the claim. The full weight and reality of it, written across the evidence of your own life, in a language you may not have known how to read. Before this message is done, something in you is going to shift. Not shift in the superficial way that fades by morning. Shift in the deep structural way that changes how you carry yourself going forward. There are signs that mark a life that is being loved at depths most people cannot perceive. Signs that look completely ordinary from the outside, until you understand what they actually mean. If even one of what I'm about to share lands as true for you, I want you to stay with me because your being here right now is not a random thing. The first sign is this: you feel things more deeply than almost anyone around you. Not just emotions in the surface sense. You feel weight. You feel the invisible texture beneath conversations, beneath situations, beneath words that were never spoken out loud. You walk into a room and something in you registers what is happening before anyone gives you information. You lie awake at night carrying questions that most people have never thought to ask. And you have spent a long time wondering if that depth in you is a gift or a burden, because no one around you has ever quite been able to explain what to do with it. That sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a design, chosen one. God does not pour spiritual depth into a person He does not intend to use. The ones who feel everything are the ones being formed to carry something that requires exactly that kind of awareness. Every moment you felt too much. Every night the weight of what you carried seemed like too great a thing for one person. Was not a punishment. It was preparation. Your sensitivity is your assignment, giving you, in advance, a preview of what it will cost. The second sign is that you have survived things that should have broken you completely. Not ordinary difficulty, the specific kind of loss, the extended season of silence from the one place you needed to hear from. The confusion that strips a person down to the raw material of who they actually are, when there is nothing left to perform. The kind of thing where the honest truth is that there were moments you could not have described to anyone how close you actually came to letting go. And yet, here you are, still standing, still seeking. Something inside you still absolutely refuses to release its grip on the knowing that there is more to this life than what you can see from where you currently stand. That is not stubbornness, chosen one. That is a grace that was placed inside you specifically to hold you until you arrived at this moment. The survival was not coincidence, not luck, not just resilience. Every time you made it through something that should have ended you, something in the unseen realm was watching and recording and saying, "This one has what it takes for what is coming." The third sign is the pull that keeps returning, the thought that comes back, the dream that will not stay dormant, the pull toward a certain kind of purpose that you have tried to lay down more times than you can count, because it seems too vast for who you currently feel yourself to be. You have called yourself arrogant for carrying it. You have called yourself naive. You have told yourself that people like you do not get to do things like that. And then, it comes back. Purposes do not choose people who are already large enough to carry them. They choose people who will grow. The size of what keeps calling at you is not a measure of your current capacity. It is a measure of who you are in the process of becoming. When something keeps returning, no matter how many times you release it, that is not a fantasy your mind invented to comfort itself. That is direction from the one who can see your end from your beginning. The fourth sign is that your life has taken turns you could not have predicted and could not have engineered. Doors that opened when everything in the logic of your situation said they should have stayed closed. Doors that shut right before you walked through them, and you were devastated. And years later, you stood somewhere entirely different, and you understood. Paths that loop back, and seasons that stall, and stretches of time that felt like nothing was happening, when in reality something below the surface was being built. You were not lost, chosen one. You were being rooted. There is a difference between a life that is wandering without direction and a life that is being guided by someone who can see farther than you can see from where you are standing. God has not been confused about your timeline for a single moment. Every detour was deliberate. Every season of preparation that felt like punishment was producing something the next chapter required. And the fact that you are still here, still watching, still asking questions, is itself a sign that the rooting is not finished. The fifth sign is the one that is hardest to name, but that you will recognize the moment I say it. Somewhere in the quiet, often in the late hours when the noise of the day has stopped, you carry a feeling. A feeling that you were made for something, not necessarily something loud. Not something the world would celebrate on a public stage. Something real and deep and lasting. Something that matters in ways that cannot be measured by anything anyone can currently see. And that feeling has survived every attempt you have made to argue it into silence. That is not ego, chosen one. That is not wishful thinking inflating a life that has no real substance behind it. That is the voice of the one who fashioned you. Still speaking after all this time. Still saying your name. Still saying, "This one is mine. And what I began in this person I have not abandoned." Type 777 in the comments if any of those signs are true of your life. Because what I am about to share next is going to go even deeper into the love that has been watching over you. And I want you fully present for it. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our community through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you aren't just visiting a site, you are entering a community of like-minded believers. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift up the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with a family that speaks the language of faith. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping us build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give acts as living water for those in our community seeking healing and hope. Give, and it will be given to you, is the promise that sustains our shared mission. I invite you now to step out of the shadows and into this circle of prayer. Come with purpose. Join the conversation, and plant your seed in fertile ground. Let's open the heavens together. Release your seed today, join our community, and see what God brings back into your life. Now I want to pause and hold something in front of you before we continue. Because over the past several years something has been discovered in research laboratories that most people sitting in churches and spiritual communities have never been told about. Not because it contradicts what the sacred texts say. In fact, it connects to what the sacred texts have been pointing toward all along. It simply came from a direction that most spiritual communities are not watching. A small group of neuroscientists, led by a doctor in New York, who has spent 20 years studying this, found something about the way the human brain is designed. That explains something most spiritually sensitive people have felt, but have never been able to name. Something so fundamental it traces back to a Nobel Prize, yet so simple in its application that it sounds almost suspicious at first. I am going to tell you what they found later in this message, but right now I want you to hold a question. What if the reason you have struggled to feel the full weight of what God says about you actually landing in your body and your life, and not just floating in your head as a belief you agree with, but cannot seem to fully inhabit? What if the reason is not spiritual failure? What if something was taken from you at a level deeper than belief, deeper than discipline, deeper than anything more effort or more prayer could simply fix? Hold that question. We are coming back to it. Because first I need you to understand the full immeasurable weight of what has been said about you, so that when the answer arrives, you will be ready to receive it. There is a reason the love of God feels largest when it is directed at someone who has been through the most difficult seasons. Not because suffering earns favor, because suffering removes the layers. When a person has been through the kind of seasons that strip away performance and pretense, and leave them with nothing but their honest need, what remains in that person is the exact shape that love was designed to fill. And you, chosen one, have been in that shape for a while now. That is why this is landing the way it is landing. I want to show you something. There are certain inner structures that keep appearing in the lives of people who are deeply loved by God. Not titles, not offices, not achievements. Inner structures, ways of being made. And when I name them, I want you to notice which ones you recognize in yourself. The first is called the seer. The seer is the one who perceives what others miss, who watches a situation and sees the hidden thread running underneath the surface of it, who walks into a room and registers something before there is any visible evidence to register, who has carried for most of their life the particular loneliness of being told they are too sensitive, too intense, too much, because the depth of what they notice makes people around them uncomfortable. If you carry this structure, here is what you need to understand. God did not give you that kind of perception as an inconvenience He eventually plans to remove. He gave it to you because the assignment ahead of you requires the ability to see what most people will refuse to look at directly. Every moment your depth has felt like a weight is a moment your depth was being sharpened for something specific. The second is the cycle breaker. The cycle breaker is the one who, often without consciously choosing it, feels the accumulated weight of patterns that have been running in their family or their community for generations. The patterns of poverty that seem to follow certain bloodlines. The patterns of broken relationships. Of silence around the things that hurt the most. Of people reaching just within sight of something and then retreating. The cycle breaker did not choose to carry awareness of this. It arrived, and with it came the specific ache of knowing something needs to end, and sensing in some unclear way that you are the one who is positioned to end it. The third structure is the wounded healer. The wounded healer is the one who has been broken in the exact way that someone else is going to need to be understood, whose darkest chapter becomes the precise vocabulary of compassion for another person who is standing in that darkness right now and needs to hear from someone who has been there and come through. The wound is not incidental to the calling of this person. The wound is part of the credential. And the depth of the love God carries for a wounded healer is always proportional to the depth of what they were asked to go through. The fourth structure is the hidden vessel. This is the one whose gift has not yet been recognized by the world around them, who has been carrying something for years, often in obscurity, often without the kind of visible affirmation that would have felt like confirmation. The world has not yet seen what this person holds, but God has seen it from the beginning. And the season of hiddenness has not been a sign of abandonment. It has been the precise condition under which what they carry was being deepened, enough to hold the weight of what is coming. If any of those landed as recognition rather than just information, I want you to hear this. These are not personality categories from a modern assessment. These are ancient patterns of how God builds the people He loves with the most concentrated intensity. And the thing they all share is this: the love directed toward them is not general and diffuse. It is precise and personal. It has been calibrated over years to the exact shape of who they are and what they are being prepared for. As this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself, Jesus says. This is not history, it is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. Now, I want to take you to two figures from the sacred record, because I think seeing what you share with them will do something in you that explanation alone cannot do. The first is Joseph. You know the outline of the story. Sold by his brothers, taken into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned. Years and years of descending when everything in the logic of his situation pointed downward. And through every single one of those descents, the text does not say that God had left. It says the opposite. In every location where Joseph was sent, including the locations that should have destroyed him completely, the text says the same thing. God was with him. The love did not protect Joseph from the descent. The love protected him through the descent, and made every descent into a form of preparation that could not have happened any other way. Here is what you need to hold in that story. Joseph did not know while he was in the pit what the pit was producing in him. He did not know while he was in the prison what the prison was building. He only knew the honest weight of where he was. And yet from outside the story, from the perspective of the completed arc, you can see that every single location of suffering was a precise step in a path that could not have been constructed without it. The love of God for Joseph was not absent in the suffering. It was present in the suffering in the most concentrated form. It would take anywhere in the entire story. The second figure is David, called by the one who knew him before he was anything visible, a man after the heart of God. Not because his record was clean. Not because his performance was consistent. Because in the caves, in the wilderness, in the years of fleeing from something that should have been his, David kept talking. He kept pouring out the honest contents of his grief, and his fear, and his confusion without editing it into something more presentable. And God called that raw, unpolished. Sometimes desperate, reaching the expression of the very kind of heart he had been looking for. There is also a woman I want to tell you about. A woman from a small city in the Midwest. Someone who found herself in what she described as the hardest 2 years of her adult life. Her marriage had gone quiet in the way that is harder than loudness. Her children were struggling in ways she did not know how to help. She had tried prayer and journaling, and every spiritual practice she had been taught, and she kept arriving at the same wall. She felt the distance, that specific spiritual distance, where you believe in the love intellectually, and cannot feel it in your body at all. She came across something during that time that I will share more about later in this message. But the thing she said afterward was this. She said it was not that she had new information. She said something in her had been cleared, like a channel that had been blocked, and then was not blocked anymore. And the love she had been taught to believe in as a doctrine, she said, arrived not as a thought, as an actual experience she felt in her body. I am going to show you what that clearing was later. Right now, I need to show you what was blocking it. There is something that stands between most people and the full reception of what I have been describing. It is not intellectual doubt. It is not theological disagreement. It is a feeling that most people carry so deeply, and for so long, that they have stopped noticing it is even present. I want to name it now because naming it is the beginning of what this message is ultimately moving toward. The feeling is this: you agree that God loves people. You believe it as a principle. You have said the words. But when you bring that belief close to yourself, when you try to apply it to your specific name, and your specific history, and the specific list of things you have not been able to fix about yourself, something tightens. Something in you says, yes, but you do not know what I have done. Yes, but you do not know how many times I have promised to change and circled back to the same place. Yes, but for someone with a history like mine, this general love surely comes with some kind of condition I have not yet met. Chosen one. That tightening is not humility. That is a wound that was given a theological disguise somewhere along the way. Someone or something over many years trained you to believe that love has to be earned before it can be received. And that training went deep enough that it now speaks in the voice of spiritual seriousness, when what it is actually doing is holding you at a careful distance from the one thing that was designed to be the foundation of your entire life. The love of God for you is not on hold until you have resolved your history. It is not the reward waiting at the end of the process of becoming. It is the fuel of the becoming. It is not what you arrive at when you finally get it together. It is the thing that makes getting there possible. And the God who has been watching your life with fierce and unhurried attention has not been waiting for you to clean up your record before He turns toward you. He turned toward you before the record even began. Type "I see it" in the comments if this is landing in a new way, because where we are going next is going to ask you to receive something, and I want you ready. So, what do you do with a wound that has learned to speak in the voice of humility? What do you do with a training that runs deep enough to feel like discernment when it is actually a barrier? How do you begin to let in a love that some part of you has been quietly insisting you do not fully qualify for? These are not abstract spiritual questions. They are practical ones, and they have practical answers. I want to give you 3 specific practices. not concepts to add to the list of things you already believe without feeling them, not more theological reasoning. 3 actual things that are specifically designed to move what lives in your head down into the part of you where it changes how you actually live. The part where love lands as a lived reality, and not just as a doctrine you mentally endorse. The first is what I call the declaration practice. I know the word declaration can carry the baggage of something performative, something you saw modeled in a context that felt forced or theatrical. Set that association aside for a moment, because what I am describing is different. Most people, when they think about God loving them, think about it the way they think about a fact they learned in school. They know it is true in the abstract. They reference it when they need comfort. They mention it in moments of gratitude, but they never speak it directly toward themselves, specifically and unhurriedly. The way you would speak something important to someone who needed to hear it said out loud. The declaration practice is this: once a day. In a moment before the noise of the day has taken over, before the demands and the notifications and the 100 small urgencies begin, you speak something true. Not a repetition you push through while your mind is somewhere else. You say it with the same quality of attention you would give to something that actually mattered. And what you say is this: the love that made me is not confused about me. It is not waiting for a better version of me to arrive. It is not keeping a record I need to settle before it turns toward me. It chose me before I was anything visible, and it has not changed its position. You say it, and then you stay with it long enough for your body to respond. Not just your mind agreeing, your chest actually loosening, your breath actually slowing. The physical response is not sentiment. It is your nervous system registering what is true. And the more consistently you offer your body the truth, rather than the habitual story of unworthiness, the more the truth becomes the operating baseline, rather than the aspiration you visit occasionally, and then leave behind. The second practice is evidence collection. And this one asks something more of you, because it involves returning to the parts of your story you would rather not revisit. Most people look at their history and find the evidence of what went wrong. The losses, the failures, the seasons that seem to prove some unfavorable conclusion about how the universe was arranged around their life. And from that collection of evidence, they draw a story about what is fundamentally true about how things work for them. What I am inviting you to do is to go back into that same history and look for a different category of evidence. Not denying what was hard. Not pretending the difficult seasons were something other than what they were. But asking a different question of the material. In the middle of that season, was there a door that stayed open when it logically should have closed? Was there a person who appeared at the exact moment you needed someone? Was there a time when something should have gone completely wrong, and instead turned in a direction you cannot fully account for by the ordinary logic of how things work? When you start looking for that category of evidence in your own history, you will find it. Not because everything was easy or protected, but because the love that has been tracking your life leaves marks. It leaves small, precise interventions that are invisible when you are scanning for the large, dramatic ones. The evidence collection practice is the ongoing, deliberate habit of noticing the marks. If you write them down. Date, what happened, what it meant. Because when the next difficult season arrives, and it will arrive, you will have something to stand on that does not depend on a feeling. You will have a documented record of a love that has shown up in specific and verifiable ways. The third practice is not something you think about, it is something you feel. I want to walk you through it right now. Find a position where your body is supported. Let the tension in your shoulders release. If you are somewhere that allows it, close your eyes. If not, let your gaze soften toward the middle distance. I want you to bring to mind a quiet moment, not a dramatic moment, not the most significant event of your life, a small moment. A moment when you were alone, or perhaps with one other person, and something in you was simply at rest. A moment that probably did not register as significant while it was happening, but that when you return to it now, something in it still feels clean and whole, and like the truest version of something. Hold the image of that moment. Let it fill in. Where were you? What was the quality of the light around you? What did your body feel like in that particular stillness? What was present in you that is not always present? Stay there long enough for it to become real rather than just a mental image. Now, I want you to understand something about that moment. It was not random. It was not something you produced by managing your own internal state correctly. That peace moved through you from a source outside of you. Every moment of genuine rest in your life, every moment when the weight lifted, and something in you said, "This is what I was made to feel." Every one of those moments was a form of communication. It was love arriving in a register your body knew how to receive, even when your mind did not have the language for it. You have been loved for a long time in forms you did not recognize as love, because they arrived too quietly to be categorized. The moment you just visited was one of those forms. It was real. It was intentional. It was evidence. And what I am about to share with you explains why there have not been more of those moments, and how the door to more of them opens. You have been here long enough in this message now, that if something is still holding you here, it is not coincidence. And it is not inertia. Something in you recognizes what is being said, because it is describing a reality your spirit already knows. That knowing is not nothing. That is the signature of the love still active in you, still pointing you toward what you need. If this message is reaching someone in your life, someone who has been carrying that specific weight of feeling loved in theory, but not in the full body and life sense, gently share this with them, because some people are waiting for exactly this. Now, I want to close the loop that has been open since the beginning of this message, because I told you at the start that there was something discovered in research laboratories that I was going to come back to. And I want to tell you now why I have waited until this moment to bring it forward, because what they found is not information. What they found is a solution. And a solution only becomes useful once you understand the full shape of the problem it solves. You now understand the shape. You know what has been built in you, and what has been working against you at a level belief and practice, and what all of this preparation has been pointing toward. Here is what you now know that you did not know when this message began. The reason the full weight of what God says about you has struggled to land in your actual lived experience, and not just hover as a belief you mentally endorse, is not spiritual weakness. It is a specific kind of disconnection, one that runs deeper than willpower, deeper than discipline, deeper than anything more effort or more prayer practiced in the same way can resolve by itself. The identity that holds all of this together is the one you have been moving toward. Through every part of what I have shared, you are not a person who simply needs more faith. You are a person with sacred wiring that was fully alive when you were young, and that has been systematically suppressed by everything the modern world does as its ordinary operating mode, and that wiring is ready to come back online. The practice that does the reconnecting, that is what comes next. Type "I receive" in the comments right now, because what follows is what this entire message has been building toward. Do you remember the question I asked you to hold early in this message, before we went into everything else? I asked you to hold this. What if the reason you have struggled to feel what you know? What if the reason is not spiritual failure on your part, but something that was taken from you at a level deeper than belief, deeper than practice? I want to answer that question now. There is a study. It did not come from a church or a seminary or a spiritual tradition. It came from a laboratory. It won the Nobel Prize in 1981, awarded to a neuroscientist named Dr. Roger Sperry for his research into something called split brain function. What Dr. Sperry proved, and what took him decades of methodical work to prove, is this. The human brain has two hemispheres, a left side and a right side, and when those two hemispheres are synchronized, when they are communicating with full coherence, something happens in a person that is different in kind from what happens when they operate separately. Scientists who study this call it whole brain activation. It is the state that every major spiritual tradition has been pointing toward in its own language for thousands of years. The Zen practitioners call it the mind of a beginner. The mystics of the Christian tradition called it the contemplative state. The ancient Hebrews wrote about it as the condition of a heart that was fully integrated. Different vocabularies, the same underlying reality. A human being whose two hemispheres are synchronized and operating together as they were designed to operate. Here is something that the science makes very clear. When you were born, your brain was in this state by default. The research of Dr. Sperry shows that 98% of children test at the level of creative genius, 98%. The whole brain is alive in childhood in a way that produces insight, intuition, play, learning, wonder, and the kind of openness that allows experience to flow in, without the filtering and contracting that comes later. And then, somewhere between childhood and adulthood, something happens. Not dramatically, not all at once. Through the ordinary accumulation of pressure, stress, performance demands, the relentless pace of modern life, the left hemisphere becomes dominant, and the right hemisphere goes quiet. The synchronization that was effortless in childhood becomes rare in adulthood. and less than 1 in 1,000 adults, according to the research, maintains the level of whole brain activation that was the default state of almost every child. Less than 1 in 1,000. And what happens in the people who lose that synchronization? The ones who are operating on half a brain without knowing it. Is this: the intuitive connection becomes fuzzy. The quiet knowing gets hard to hear. The sense of being guided, of being in flow, of being a person whose life is moving in a direction that feels larger than what they can manufacture with effort alone. That sense goes dim. Not because God left, because the neurological receiver, through which the connection was felt and expressed, has gone offline. Through history, the people who consistently used their whole brains were what we now call geniuses. Steve Jobs said, "It was the state of mind that made the iPhone possible." Tesla also talked about the same thing. The situation in which solutions came whole, instead of in pieces that he had to put together. Taylor Swift has talked about how she feels when she performs in front of 80,000 people, and is taken out of normal consciousness, and into something that moves through her instead of from her. These weren't magical experiences that had nothing to do with science. It was shown that the whole brain was active in these states. And the research shows that the thing those people used was open to almost all children, and is now only open to about 1 in 1,000 adults. Not because it was meant to be rare, but because the modern world removes all the conditions for it to happen, without anyone choosing to. And the love was always there. The link was always there. The thing that stopped working the way it was meant to work was the receiver. Then you haven't failed spiritually. That is a physiological problem with a physiological answer. A California woman talked about how she felt before she found that answer. She told them she had tried every spiritual practice they had suggested, like prayer, writing in a journal, meditation, and more. But she kept having the same experience. She thought what they said. There was no way for her to feel the truth behind them in her body, or in the way her days felt. According to her, the gap between what she knew and what she felt had begun to feel like a permanent state, something that would always be true in her life. This is what she said after 10 days of hearing it. After that, she said something else. 10 days, not 10 weeks or 10 months. Similar things were said by a man from Texas who was a father of 2, and had been running his own business. He was feeling the fog that comes from having too much responsibility while your brain isn't working at full capacity. He said that his wife made fun of the fact that his IQ had gone up 20 points in just 6 weeks. He said that for the first time in years, his mind felt like it was using all of its tools, instead of work hard to get things done. She said that the information she got was not new. Something was cleared, like a channel that had been closed was opened all of a sudden. She had been taught to believe in love as a doctrine, but now it was love that she felt in her body. Because the following is what a group of neuroscientists in New York, led by Dr. Daniel Barron, worked on for years. After more than an hour of clinical neural sync technology, the kind of whole brain activation protocol used in specialized settings, they compressed and improved it so that it could be played back over and over again for 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Close your eyes, put on headphones, and listen. That's everything that needs to be done. The smart switch is what they call it. It's not a thought wave, an app for meditation, or a 7th-hour Zazen neurofeedback machine. It is a sequence that was designed based on Dr. Roger Sperry's Nobel Prize, winning research to connect the two halves of your brain and get your brain working the way it did when you were a child. That place in your body where you can feel and live the love that has always been directed at you. Where the quiet voice is clear, and you have a strong sense of being guided. There is a link to Dr. Barron in both the description and the comment that was pinned. Some people hear this and think, this sounds like brainwave products I've tried before. I want to talk about that right away because it's important. In his own explanation, Barron makes a clear difference. Brainwaves aren't whole. They only look at one part of how the brain works. A lot of scientists in this field have stopped studying brainwaves because they haven't found many useful results. What Dr. Barron is working with is completely different in how it works. Neurosync technology works at the level of whole brain coherence, which means that both sides of the brain are working together. Not a frequency overlay, but a reconnection of things that were cut off. This is also why the real sequence can only be bought directly from Dr. Barron's team. Look online for Genius Switch or a word that sounds like it. You will find tracks and tools that use that name. Dr. Barron and his colleagues have studied them. Most of them don't have any neural sync technology at all. They carry the label because it sounds good. And there isn't much that stops someone from labeling something that way. How it works is what makes the difference, and his team's work is the only place where it works. Now, this is what the investment looks like. Neurofeedback done in person by a trained professional costs around $300 per session. A device for your home costs around $7. Dr. Barron and his team made a decision to price this in a way that removed the financial barrier for the people who actually need it. The original price was $49, which colleagues already described as remarkable value for what it delivers. On this page, there is an additional 10 off, bringing it to 30, and every cent is backed by an ironclad money-back guarantee. You can listen 8 minutes a day. You can listen 80 times. If it does not do for you what it has done for 18,000 people who have used it, you get every dollar back. No conditions. 4 free bonuses come with it as well. A guided visualization from a creator on the car map, a grocery guide designed to eliminate the foods that actively suppress neural function, a 100-year-old manifestation text that forms the root of most modern spiritual practices around abundance, and a printable habits guide, all of it included. If your spirit resonates with what I have described, the link is in the description below and in the pinned comment. That is where Dr. Barron made it available, not anywhere else. Type I release in the comments if you are ready to stop carrying the distance between what you know and what you feel. You are about to enter your divine future. But remember, this breakthrough is not for you alone. Your testimony is the bridge someone else will use to reach their own miracle. Archangel Michael is inviting you to visit community through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. By joining our like-minded community, you are no longer praying in isolation. You are adding your voice to a global sanctuary, where we discuss the Word daily, and stand in the gap for one another. This is not poetry when Jesus says, "Give, and heaven will open over you." On this platform, every seed you plant turns into oil for your destiny, fire for your calling, and a hedge of safety for your family. Now is your time. Step into our community prayer wall, share your heart, and as you give, watch God multiply what you let go of. Let's finish this journey together. Visit Out Community now, join the family, and see your heavens open. I'm going to say something over your life before this message ends. I want you to know that is coming. I want you to stay for it, because what gets spoken over a person at the end of a message like this is not ceremony. Words carry actual weight in the unseen places. And what I am going to say over you, before this is finished, is something that has been building through every minute of what we have been through together. But first, I want to stay with you here for a moment in what has just taken place, because something did happen in this message. Something in you recognized itself in what was described, not with the surface recognition of agreeing with content you found mildly inspiring, but the deeper recognition of something true being named. The kind of recognition that moves through your chest, rather than just through your mind. That recognition is not small, it is not ordinary. When a thing is true about you, and you finally hear it spoken in a language that reaches the place where you actually live, something opens. Something that has been held tightly begins to loosen. And the fact that you are still here, that you stayed with this all the way through, is itself part of the story that has been building in you much longer than today. I want to ask you something quietly. When was the last time you sat with the full possibility that you are specifically and personally loved, not as doctrine, not as a comfort you retrieve in the hard moments and put away when things feel manageable, but as the continuous operational reality of your actual daily life? When was the last time that possibility had room to breathe inside you rather than being immediately crowded out by everything else that insists on your attention? If the answer is a long time, part of what this moment is for is to give it room. Not to argue you into it with more evidence, not to perform an emotion you do not feel, simply to let something that has always been true settle into a place it has not been able to settle before. Because here is what the full weight of this message is trying to say. The sensitivity you carry was given to you because what you are called to requires it. The things you have survived built something the next season of your life will need. The quiet pull that keeps returning in you is not a distraction or a fantasy. It is the original frequency of who you were made to be. Still broadcasting, still waiting for the receiver to be fully online, so it can be heard the way it was always meant to be heard. And what the science we discussed in this message helps restore is not a concept or a philosophy. It is the physical receiver itself. The neurological condition of whole brain coherence, the synchronized and fully alive state that was yours by default when you were young. That is the state in which a human being can feel guided and held and loved. Not just in the abstract, but in the body, in the lived moment, in the texture of an ordinary Tuesday. That is what has been waiting to come back online in you. And now, you have a path toward it that is specific and real. I am going to do something now. I am going to invite you into a release. Not because release is ritual I am performing. Because release is the actual movement of what happens when a person finally stops holding the weight that was never theirs to carry, and opens the space for what was always meant to be there. Take a breath with me, a real one. Do not hold yourself up. Let the effort of holding everything together loosen for just a moment. You are safe here. Nothing is required of you right now, except to receive. If you have been carrying the story that you were not quite enough for the love that was supposed to reach you, release that story now. It was not true. It was never true. It was a wound that learned to speak voice, and it is time to let it go. If you have been carrying the accumulated evidence of every season that seemed to prove you were alone in this, every prayer that seemed to go unanswered, every door that closed, every silence that stretched longer than you had the faith to endure, release that evidence now. That was not proof of abandonment. That was preparation speaking in a language you did not yet have the key to translate. If you have been carrying shame around the chapters of your story that you cannot fully explain or justify or undo, release that now. The one who knows every chapter has not changed his conclusion about you, not once. Release the version of yourself that was always waiting to be acceptable enough for the love to fully apply. Release the habit of living at the edges of what is available to you because something once taught you the center was reserved for someone else. Release the exhaustion of performing your way towards something that was always already yours. Release the timeline you built when you did not yet know what you now know. Release the need to understand every part of the path before you can trust the one who laid it. Release it. Release it. Release it. Let it fall. Let all of it fall. You do not have to carry it out of here. Now, I want to speak over you. Receive this. You are the one who kept returning when every reasonable voice said the effort was no longer worth it. That is not a personality trait. That is one of the most sacred forms of courage that exists, and it does not arise from nowhere. It was placed in you specifically for a specific reason, and nothing that has happened in your life has removed it from you. You are the one who feels the weight of what others walk past without registering. That depth was not given to you as a burden without a destination. It is a gift in the process of being shaped into its full usefulness. The day is coming, closer than it looks from where you stand today, when the depth you have been carrying will be the precise thing that someone else needs, and you will recognize in that moment what all the shaping was preparing you for. You are a seer. Breaking cycles is what you do. You are a wounded healer in the middle of your own restoration, which means the most important part of your story is not behind you. You are a hidden vessel carrying something the world has not yet seen, being prepared for a moment that is already being made ready for you. And above every one of those things you are loved. Not loved in the diffuse way that applies to everyone without distinction. Loved with the specific, fierce, never fatigued attention of the one who designed every detail of what you are, who has been watching your particular name and your particular history, with the kind of care that does not tire, does not waver, does not check the hour, and decide enough time has been invested in this person. God is madly in love with you. Not was, not will be once you finally get enough of this right. This is not a theological position about the nature of divine love in general. This is a specific, present tense reality about your life, your name. Your story is right now, in this exact moment. With complete knowledge of everything you are, and everything you have not yet become, and everything you are still in the middle of working out. The love does not wait for the resolution of the story. The love is the reason the story has a resolution. Chosen one, you have no idea how deeply you are loved. But something shifted today, and the distance between knowing it and feeling it just got smaller. You are the one who was loved before the performance began, who was watched over through every season that tried to erase that, and who is being loved right now into the fullness of everything you were made to be. Nothing about that has ever changed. Nothing ever will. Type "I am ready" in the comments right now. Because you are. And something in you knows it. Is there someone in your life who has been carrying this specific weight? The weight of feeling like the love that was supposed to reach them somehow stopped short. The person who has survived things and never quite let anyone see how heavy the carrying has been. The person who feels everything deeply and has been told for too long that this is a problem rather than a gift. Share this with them. Let this be the message that finds them the way it found you today. The sharing is a sacred act. It is the cycle breaker reaching back for someone still in the cycle. If this reached a place in you that needed reaching, gently press the like now, so that this message finds the next person who has been waiting for it, and consider staying. Consider being part of the community of chosen ones who are gathering here, who are learning to receive what has always been offered, who are remembering what they were before the world did what the world does. You belong in this company. You always have. One more thing before we seal this. Do you remember the question I asked you to hold at the beginning of this message? What if the reason you have struggled to feel what you believe? What if it is not spiritual failure, but something taken from you at a level deeper than effort can fix? The answer to that question is available. The link is in the title and in the comment below that has been pinned. Dr. Barron and his team put it there. 24 hours a week. Headphones. Eyes closed. That is what it asks of you. The rest it does beneath your awareness. The way it always should have been doing since you were young. That's how it is. Before we get to the end of this powerful story, let's reflect on this deep truth. You did not find this message by accident. This is a divine appointment meant specifically for you. You are being invited into a protected, faith-filled community at the link in the description and pinned comment, a place where divine abundance is not just a hope, but a promise built on the Word. By heading to the site right now, you are unlocking access to a sacred community of like-minded believers. When you join our membership tiers, you gain immediate entry to powerful content, daily devotions, and divine insights that are hidden from the world. This is your chance to enter a sanctuary where you will receive spiritual guidance, unwavering support on our prayer wall, and speedy progress toward your destiny. Do not let this moment of destiny pass you by. Your breakthrough is waiting. Join our inner circle through the exclusive link in the description. This is how you guarantee you never miss the personalized messages and spiritual warfare tools meant to elevate your life. If you feel called to deepen your connection, the link is waiting for you in both the pinned comment and the description. For those who want to amplify this work and carry the light home, you can find our guided ebooks and Bibles in the pinned comment. Whether you join as a member or sow a seed through our resources, your presence and energy change the world. Take the step. Your abundance awaits.